There was a time, and it really was not very long ago, where Bethesda was seen in a very eminent light. They were the publisher and developer that not only made great games, but they made them the right way. They represented everything that a fan and gamer wanted a video game developer and publisher to be. The anti-Electronic Arts, if you will. When they acquired new studios or properties, those companies generally thrived. They made great games, and not just great games, but great single-player games. They allowed their studios to take risks, making games like Dishonored, rebooting the Doom series multiple times until it was perfect, continuing to release games like Wolfenstein and allowing their developers to do it in a way that they wanted to. As recently as E3 2015, when Bethesda announced the imminent release of Fallout 4, they also announced a mobile game called Fallout Shelter. This was a big deal because Bethesda made it a big deal. Todd Howard proclaimed that they wanted to make a mobile game that they wanted to play. So, they made a game without many of the normal pitfalls mobile games face, such as requiring that you're always online and not gating progression behind a paywall, for example. The result was a very well-received mobile Fallout game, which ended up making them a ton of money. And oh, by the way, the next main series entry in the hugely popular series is less than 6 months away from release. And it looks pretty good too. And even once Fallout 4 released, while it wasn't perfect, it was a continuation of the series that many people generally enjoyed. It was commercially and critically successful. Some diehard fans felt that they could have done more with the game, and I agree, but there wasn't any controversy associated with the release. Bethesda went on to release several DLC packs, which were also well received, and the best part of the game was included in the DLC, Far Harbor. It incorporated changes that many fans had long desired and was proof that Bethesda listened to feedback. They continued to show that they were listening to requests from gamers because they figured out a way to incorporate mods into the console version of the game, for the first time ever. This was a huge announcement because for at least a decade, it was one of the most requested features for console versions of Bethesda games. In 2016, Bethesda announced a new vision for Prey, Dishonored 2, and a reboot of the Quake series. They released the amazing Doom 2016, the best shooter to come out in several years, and it was critically acclaimed. They also announced the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. This version of Skyrim also included mod support, another heavily requested feature for console owners since the game originally released in 2011. Toward the end of 2016, Bethesda really raised eyebrows when Skyrim was featured front and center in the Nintendo Switch reveal announcement video. They would go on to be included in the full system reveal press conference in early 2017, complete with a Todd Howard appearance. Not only that, but Bethesda pledged even more support for the platform. Later that year, Fallout Shelter released on the Switch, and Bethesda announced in a Nintendo Direct that both Doom 2016 and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus were coming to the Switch as well. Doom released just a few short months after the announcement, and it was a very solid port of a great game. Bethesda was doing the unthinkable. They were proactively supporting a Nintendo platform and bringing big games to it. When Doom Eternal was announced, Bethesda revealed that it, too, was coming to the Switch day and date with the other versions of the game. Even better, while other AAA publishers were sitting on the sidelines for the Switch, they were also not developing games for virtual reality. Bethesda took a stab at VR as well. They were a company clearly okay with taking risks and making the kind of games that gamers like to play. Some of these games weren't selling as well as they would hope, though one could make the argument that this was because of lackluster marketing and a draconian game review policy. But I digress. 2018 is when things really started to unravel for Bethesda. It leaked pretty early in the year that they were working on another Fallout title. This in and of itself was newsworthy, and it worried longtime fans of the company who were looking forward to the long-rumored Starfield and, of course, the Elder Scrolls 6. We just had a Fallout game, and lots of DLC for it, so many gamers assumed there wouldn't be one for a while. The catch is that this Fallout title would be different. It would be online. And only online. This rumor, originally reported by Kotaku's Jason Schreier, was alarming for many people. To make matters worse, Bethesda really didn't have any response. For weeks. Their plan was to fully reveal the game at E3, but by the time E3 arrived, the narrative for the game was already out of control and decidedly negative. Bethesda knew that they'd need to convince people that Fallout 76 was worthy of the name Fallout and that it was worth their time. In retrospect, it is indeed a curious decision for them to have pursued, since most of the fans of their games enjoy the single-player aspect. Still, Bethesda had been taking risks, and this falls strictly into that category. Some have paid off, like supporting the Switch and allowing id Software ample development time and money to make Doom 2016 into an amazing game. Some, like VR versions of their titles, were just okay. Fallout 76, on the other hand, had a lot to prove but also a lot to lose. And yet, I don't think anyone could have predicted how terribly the launch and months after launch would be for the game. At the time of the reveal, you could tell that internally, Bethesda was already reeling from the negative backlash to the game. Because of this, Todd Howard, in an unprecedented move for Bethesda, announced both Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6. This was entirely a PR move to mitigate the backlash they knew they would receive from releasing Fallout 76. Unfortunately, E3 was just the beginning. As the game got closer to release, there were more reasons to worry. Bethesda hand-waved away some of the concerns players had about the game, such as it not having any human NPCs. Bethesda simply said that robots, terminals, and audio logs would take the place of these characters, and that it even afforded them more flexibility in storytelling. Even worse, the premise of the game, mixed with some of the online features they were touting, simply didn't make sense. For example, your character's duty is to prepare for 20 years to rebuild and repopulate the Earth after a nuclear holocaust. After emerging from the vault, they, instead, take selfies, wear stupid costumes, and then decide to launch even more nukes. Even for Fallout standards, in a series that prides itself with dark, tongue-in-cheek humor, this doesn't really make sense. If Bethesda had said that this is a spin-off in some alternate universe and is a non-canon entry in the series, I think for diehard fans, it would have been more well-received. Once the game released, however, that is when the real trouble began. The Metacritic score for the Xbox version of the game is an eye-watering 49. Though there are real issues with determining the quality of a game solely by its Metacritic score, the fact that it received a score this astoundingly bad foretold many issues still yet to come. The biggest problem at the outset was that the performance was just bad. People expect issues with online launches, but this was different. The world was huge and there were no characters, and then there were very few other players within the world. Inventory the player can hold in the game was severely limited, and Bethesda used the excuse that their engine couldn't handle more. Bethesda's collector's edition of the game, called the Power Armor Edition, advertised a canvas bag only to ship with a very cheap nylon bag instead. The company that was lauded for making a great mobile game and bucking the trends of that industry became just another AAA publisher when they promised 500 atoms for your trouble due to this fiasco. Atoms are the in-game currency to buy items and skins. This, infuriatingly for some people, helped to highlight how overpriced items were in the game. On top of being a full-price $60 game, Bethesda was charging free-to-play prices on their in-game store. Once the fury of gamers and the media reached a crescendo, Bethesda finally relented and announced that they would be manufacturing the real canvas bags, and all you needed to do was show a proof of purchase to claim your bag. But then even that went awry when their online portal exposed the personal information of other people who claimed their bags. Then there were the issues when the first major patch registered over 50 gigabytes on consoles, eliciting eye rolls everywhere and questions as to whether Bethesda had the technical expertise to even manage an online-only game like this. It was just one piece of bad news after the next. Going into 2019 then, Bethesda has been tweaking the game every week. Even this has been rocky, as one of their patches reintroduced bugs that they had fixed months prior. They were caught essentially nerfing buffs and weapons to make the game more grindy. They are offering what appears to be pay-to-win content, and at this point, there is rampant speculation that Fallout 76 will be going free-to-play. It is hard to find any positive news on the game. As a result of the launch of Fallout 76, almost overnight Bethesda has gone from a fan-favorite company with a cult hero leader in Todd Howard to a company that people are comparing with Electronic Arts and Activision. That is not the company that Bethesda wants to find themselves in, at least in the eyes of fans and gamers. So, what can Bethesda do? Well, I honestly think that going free-to-play is their only move to salvage Fallout 76. They absolutely cannot abandon the game, as it will further disparage a once proud franchise. They need to resurrect it Final Fantasy XIV style, with a relaunch fixing the game. Going free to play would allow them to add in much wanted features. They did manage to build a beautiful, interesting world, but it is a world without anything to do because there's no one there. I'd have enjoyed the game more if I could have just played offline and explored the world on my own. Bethesda needs an offline version of the game as well, for those of us that want to experience what they've built but don't want to be doing it with other people. Remember, Bethesda, most of your fans are also big fans of single-player games. Beyond Fallout 76 though, Bethesda needs to apologize and prove that something like this will not happen again. I think they are in a unique position to have a good redemption arc to their story, but they really need to handle it better than they have been doing. They've started by providing detailed weekly updates and by continuing to engage fans and critics alike, but they can and should do more. If nothing else, I think that this entire debacle will serve to keep Bethesda grounded and hungry to deliver the type of experiences that their fans want from them. There are sky-high expectations for both Starfield as well as The Elder Scrolls 6. In fact, I'd say that the expectations for those games are even higher than they were prior to Fallout 76's release. But there is hope. I believe that Bethesda cares about the quality of their games, and while there were likely financial motivations that pushed Fallout 76 out the door too early, I think that the result of that decision will be more than enough to keep it from happening again. Here's to hoping that Bethesda has learned their lesson. Now, they will embark on the road to redemption among fans and critics alike. I think that they can and will overcome this. Their history is too long and filled with great games and intellectual properties to let one failure determine the future of the company. They need to focus on what they do best, and that isn't running always online multiplayer shooters. They took a risk and it didn't pay off. It is time to salvage what they can and make the situation right. There are millions of fans eagerly awaiting news on Starfield, Bethesda Game Studios' next major release. It has long been in development, and after the Fallout 76 disaster, fans are even more excited to get that bad taste out of their mouth. Hopefully we'll find out more at E3 this year. In the meantime, Bethesda still has work to do on Fallout 76. Somewhere in that mess, there is a good game. It is up to Bethesda to find it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Your support is very much appreciated.